She parked her spotless white SUV inside my private workshop, hit the lock button, and told me it counted as a community shade space. She thought I'd argue. She thought I'd panic. Instead, I grabbed my welder, sealed the door shut with steel, drove to a lake, and spent the next 3 days watching her melt down on my security cameras. My name's David. I'm 42, and I build custom metal projects for a living. My workshop sits behind my house, right at the edge of the neighborhood. It smells like hot steel, sawdust, old motor oil, and coffee that's been sitting too long in a thermos. To me, that place is peace. It's the one spot where I can work with my hands and forget the world exists. But every neighborhood has that one person who treats a clipboard like a crown. In ours, that person was Brenda. Brenda was the HOA president, and she carried herself like she personally signed the Constitution. Pastel cardigans, stiff smile, fake sweet voice, clipboard always tucked under one arm like she was on patrol. She'd already complained about my truck, my hose, my grass line, even how long my bay door stayed open while I worked. Then one Friday morning, she crossed a line I didn't know a person could cross. I was getting ready for a 3-day fishing trip I'd planned for months. Truck packed, cooler iced, rods ready. I had my workshop doors open to let the morning air move through while I swept up and organized some steel in the back. I stepped outside for less than a minute to grab a broom. When I came back, there was a white SUV parked inside my shop. Not in the driveway, not near the curb, inside the building, on my concrete floor. For a second, I honestly thought I was losing my mind. Then I heard heels clicking down the driveway. "Brenda," I said, "why is your car inside my workshop?" She barely looked at me, just adjusted her cardigan and smiled like she'd already won. "I'm utilizing the shade, David." "The shade?" "Yes," she said. "Since the structure was open and not actively in use, it falls under communal preservation access." That's not a real thing. There was no such rule. She was making it up in real time with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no. I told her to move it immediately. She sighed and said she was hosting a beautification committee brunch. Her driveway was reserved for catering, and she'd come back later. Then she clicked her key fob, locked the SUV inside my shop, and walked away like she'd done me a favor. I told her I was leaving for the lake and locking the building. Without even turning around, she yelled, "Then leave the doors open. The association will fine you if anything happens to my vehicle." That was the moment something in me went perfectly calm. See, most people solve problems with phone calls. I solved problems with metal. I walked back into my workshop, unplugged the radio, plugged in my wire feed welder, and stared at those heavy steel roll-up doors. If Brenda wanted her car safe inside my building, fine. It was going to be safe. I cut thick square tubing from my scrap rack and welded 2 solid steel bars across each door track. Left side, right side, lower brace, second brace. By the time I was done, those doors weren't opening for anybody without a grinder and a lot of patience. Then I locked the side access door with a hardened padlock and screwed bright warning signs onto the building. Private property. No trespassing. No parking. Vehicles left inside will remain locked in. My neighbor Gary watched the whole thing from his porch, sipping coffee like it was premium entertainment. He gave me one slow nod. That was enough. Then I got in my truck and drove to the lake point 2 hours later. I was in a folding chair by the water with a cold drink in one hand and my phone in the other, watching my driveway camera feed like it was pay-per-view. And before I get to the part where Brenda completely lost control, let me ask you this. Where do you live, and what's the craziest power trip rule you've seen in your neighborhood or community? Drop your city or state in the comments, because I know every place has its own version of Brenda. At 5:15, motion hit my camera. Brenda came marching down my driveway, with 2 pastel-clad friends trailing behind her. She looked relaxed for about 3 seconds. Then she pressed the key fob, heard the chirp from inside the sealed shop, grabbed the main door handle, and yanked. Nothing. She pulled harder. Still nothing. Then came the scream. "David, open this door." I took a sip of my drink and kept watching. She ran to the side door, saw the lock, saw the signs, and started rattling the padlock like she could shame steel into moving. One of her friends actually pointed at the warning sign and stepped back. Brenda started pounding on the main door, yelling that I was hiding inside, that I was stealing her car, that she was calling the police. So she did. A county deputy showed up about 20 minutes later. Young guy, tired face, zero interest in HOA nonsense. Brenda ran up to him, shouting that her vehicle was being held hostage in my garage. He asked one simple question. Did you park it there voluntarily? She said yes. He looked at the signs, looked at the building, looked back at her, and said, Ma'am, that's private property. This is a civil issue. I can't force entry into a secured structure because you parked your own car inside it. Brenda actually yelled, then shoot the lock. The deputy just stared at her like he was reconsidering his career choices. Then he told her to wait for the homeowner to return and drove off. That's when she snapped. She turned to the door, screamed like a woman possessed, and kicked it with one of those pointed little heels. Bad decision. The steel door didn't move an inch. But Brenda sure did. She bounced backward, lost her shoe, lost her balance, hit the slope by the lawn, and dropped hard right onto the grass. Clipboard flew. Pen snapped. Her friends rushed in. I laughed so hard by that lake, I nearly spilled my drink. The rest of the weekend was beautiful. When I got home Sunday evening, Gary was on his porch again, this time with iced tea. He told me it had been a regular circus. I grabbed my angle grinder, cut the welds, rolled the door up, and there sat Brenda's SUV exactly where she'd left it. Brenda was waiting nearby in sweatpants, exhausted and furious. She stormed into the workshop, got in, hit the start button. Nothing. Dead silence. She jumped out and accused me of touching her battery. I told her I never touched the car. But when she locked it Friday, she'd apparently left the accessory power on. After sitting sealed up for 3 days, the battery was completely dead. That was the best part. Everything that happened to her that weekend, she did to herself. She muttered that she'd have to call for help. I wish her luck, then went inside to clean my fish. By the next morning, the SUV was gone. 3 weeks later, Brenda resigned from the HOA board, citing stress and health reasons. She stopped carrying the clipboard, stopped making rounds. And every time she drives past my house now, she stares straight ahead like my property doesn't exist. My workshop smells like steel and coffee again. The doors stay open when I want them open. And nobody, not even Brenda, has ever parked inside it again. If you want more stories where entitled people push too far and regret it instantly, hit subscribe and tell me below. Would you have called a tow truck or done exactly what I did?